So yes, this is my third installment because I got cut off. But nonetheless, um, when do, we come to the realization that, you know, um, there really isn't much room to play oblivious. And that was the point to my last video, is that um, people have to acknowledge the fact that a big portion of what the demographic is in Washington Heights was missing from this neighborhood. And if that had to do with any kind of opposition that now Lin and his director by choice, John Cho, I believe, decided that was best or seemed bankable to just keep upkeep of what we have seen decade after decade, just to make profit, to make the box office, the highest percentage. As you can see, now we're past opening weekend, that it wasn't profitable. It wasn't profitable. This probably would have worked if this was the 1980s and 1990s. But now with streaming and everything is intertwined to how we are shelled out entertainment, it gets complex. And then not to mention that there is a voice, regardless of how you want to see it. Oh, it's just simple social media, people trolling, however you want to categorize it. People have a voice. People are tired of just the excuses. People have to take into consideration also that what is pushed out in the media can have an influence. If that weren't the case, then we wouldn't have seen the verdict that we saw in case of the George Floyd case. If it wasn't for that particular video, we wouldn't have had the evidence. It really would have been his word against witnesses. So commentary, people's public opinion, Twitter, Instagram, and people are voicing their opinions. This is not when Rita Moreno was, making a name for herself in West Side Story. This is a moment in time where people express how they feel and their disappointment, and people should respect that. Just coming from the aspect of, as a resident of Washington Heights, there were elements, yes, that I could relate to. The abuela is very kind of reminiscent of my own mother, and maybe even ladies from the neighborhood, my neighbors. Were they that sugary sweet? Absolutely not. But I also do recognize that this is a fairy tale Disney-like movie. So, and again, I was not expecting a documentary, and that's not the point. People have to also stop with that nonsense. Supposedly people were nitpicking at, or even Lin made mention that he wanted desperately the hookah in the film to make it authentic. That is not what people are asking for. We don't care about those particular elements. I know I pointed out those details, but that was for me. In the overall consensus, you have to be fair. People were expecting to come out, and I'm sure, and I guarantee to you that people would have came out in droves if you just would have respected the demographic. Black Panther, for instance, had a show out of people. I mean, it was documented, for heaven's sake. You saw it in every news outlet. And Black Panther, when it made its premiere, it was sold out. Like, it reached astronomical percentages at the box office, and it was like that for weeks. That movie went on to make billions because that money power was there. I'm sorry, but black people really felt represented there. I remember seeing Black Panther, I believe at the Magic Johnson Theater in Harlem. And I kid you not, people came out in droves in their African garb, in dashikis. They came in, even coming to America, costumes, which was the closest, without seeing the movie, that would resemble what they anticipated that this movie was going to be. It was a black story, black prince, a black family, and a very positive light. And people were prideful. I can remember sitting in that theater and being surrounded by enthusiastic fans, and no one was speaking. It was like literally super quiet, and people were just invested, glued to the screen. And those moments that really, there were so many moments in Black Panther that I felt the empathy, and I can recall myself crying, bawling in particular scenes. I was invested in the story, and so was everyone around me. But you can sense that sense of pride that people were just clapping. They were just so incredibly satisfied to just finally see their faces on screen. So this is exactly the point. This was supposed to be, I'm sorry, I know people love the play, and it was really, everyone loved it on Broadway. But this was supposed to be our crowning moment. This was going to be our Black Panther. A prideful moment when people finally felt represented. And even if I'll admit that I don't necessarily think that I would have seen any element of my cultural background, or I was going to see any of that, but I almost fall into the dichotomy for being for living vicariously through another culture and having lived here as long as I have. So it would have still felt prideful for me as a resident, and it wasn't. It so fell short. And for people to be kind of okay because we just have so few opportunities to be showcased, and in this light, I have to think, like, I'm like, you fought for this position. Like, you really, I mean, just based on your talent, I am not critiquing Lin's talent. I feel like he is genius when it comes to marketing, promoting, writing. I mean, he is the genius that he is. But now you are America's darling. You have these big companies investing in you and wanting to push out your projects. If this was a project that now far exceeds your area of expertise, then do what Ryan Murphy does. I mean, look at how well Pose was well received. People didn't even want to see the end of Pose. They didn't. When we heard a season that was it, the season 3 was going to be the final season, people were upset. People were bawling. And no shade to Ryan Murphy. He had his momentum with Glee and a number of other shows, American Horror Story, but Pose, and even though I believe he's an openly gay man, he doesn't know that experience. He didn't know what it was like to be Latino, gay, living in the Bronx, trans. All of that was out of like his area of expertise, his vernacular. So what does he do? He has a co-creator in Stephen Cannell, and he contributed so many beautiful storylines to that show that's why it resonated. So that is the point. That's what a lot of people here are just like failing to see. You had an opportunity, man. The baton was handed to you. And if it was an issue about, oh well, the production house wasn't going to go for it, bro, I'm sure you had enough money that you could have footed the bill. You could have footed the bill. As expensive as those Hamilton tickets were, I mean, I think the cheapest was maybe $600 per ticket. And I mean, again, no shade. I don't know about your finances, but I know that it's the top of the epitome. Like when people were buying them, like it was like hot bread, pan caliente. You know, those tickets were selling for like at least $1,000 per person. You didn't make bank like that. You know, having Hamilton in New York and San Francisco and Chicago and London. Again, I'm only a spectator, but if you really wanted for this moment to have been that prideful moment when it came for Black Panther, for that audience, and you wanted to be for it to translate for you know, maybe I don't know if you wanted to stay loyal to your core base on Broadway, but if you were going to translate now this story to an actual neighborhood, we exist. This is not, we're not figments of your imagination, perhaps your characters, but we wanted to see ourselves on that screen. And if you really wanted that authenticity, bro, then I feel like, yes, you should have invested. Either invested in experts, bring in creative writers that, you know, got skin in the game and would have provided some kind of insight. Oz Rodriguez, who did Vampires versus the Bronx, I think that was honestly the closest that felt authentically Uptown, authentically Dominican life. I mean, he walks the walk, and you could have had him as a partner, and you could have footed the bill, because in you footing the bill, it provides for creative license. So this is what I'm trying to get. That's the point that I believe a lot of people are missing here, is that how many more opportunities are we going to be given, and how many more excuses are people going to accept? You know, again, I know people will be like, well, you're not one to talk. You do see, and that's the point. I have seen myself semi. I don't relate to these people. I didn't relate to Vanessa's character. I really didn't. Just because she's light skinned, does that automatically click for me? And you're right. We're bombarded with people that look like me. Do they feel like me? Do I make a connection? Do I necessarily invest in their character? I don't. And because I don't know anything about Vanessa's character in The Heights, she, you know, I didn't care. I really didn't care. By the time that they have that beautiful scene and they decide to stay home, stay in the bodega. And again, that's also kind of weird, because it's like they stayed there because Usnavi had the lottery ticket based on Abuela Claudia's winning ticket. Which, okay, side note, as a New Yorker, is that even valid? Like, if you write on it, last time I checked, but again, you know, I'm nitpicking at the little things, but those are big things. You know, if you're a lottery winner ticket, you have a lottery ticket that's a winner, don't write on it. It might not be valid. Nonetheless, he gets to stay in his bodega, and his spot, because he got the 96,000, right? The famous 96,000 song from that play. And he's able to make a life. Vanessa does, I guess she stays in the neighborhood as his wife, or I don't know if she's his wife, but she's his baby mama. And now she has a little boutique in the bodega. But everybody else, we don't even know. We don't know what happens. We don't know what happened to Nina. Did she graduate? Does she go into political science? Does she work for you know, an organization to help out with DACA and DACA recipients? What happens to Sonny? What happens to his situation with his dad? Does he continue to live in this abusive home life with an alcoholic for a father? What happens to Kevin? Does he give up on his cab dispatch company? Does he move back to Puerto Rico? You know, what happens to Benny? Like, we don't even know. All we center on is Usnavi, his girl, and the baby that they have, and that's pretty much it. There's no follow-up. And again, if you wanted that authenticity, then you could have footed the bill, because then now you have creative license to do as you please and be as reflective. Again, at the end of the day, we have been talking about decades of never really, you know, a particular demographic of people that have never been showcased. This is one of my books from college, Latin Looks, by my ex-professor Clara Rodriguez from Fordham University. Now, I just want you to see the decades. And every so often, okay, Latin boom, it's gonna happen this time. Look at how far back this reaches, of seeing the same faces, same storyline, right? Our famous Rita Moreno, Chita Rivera, they're mentioned in the movie. Raquel Welch, Charo, even the men are like, you know, fine hair, loose curls. Desi Arnaz, for heaven's sake. And even goes as contemporary, right? We have Raul Julia, which, you know, we miss Raul Julia, but nonetheless, Antonia Banderas, Andy Garcia, Jimmy Smith. Again, yo, how many more excuses can we take? It's 2021, bro. It's 2021. Look at these images. This was, again, ¿Quién mató Hector Lavoe? The entire cast. The entire cast. Tell me you really didn't know? I feel for you, bro. I feel like you're getting ambushed, but come on. And this is one of my favorite movies, which I recommend too, if you haven't seen Dance With Me with Chayanne and Vanessa Williams. I think, honestly, if you want me to be perfectly honest, I saw more ethnicities in this film. And that dance sequence, oh, it was fire. I'm going to link it in the description box below so you can see it. Because I want to be in that club. I want to be in that club. You know, this is still one of my favorite Latino-oriented dance movies, feel-good movies, and and still felt relatable. Did it get the attention that it deserved? No. But again, it's not, for this particular movie, it's not about that. It's about just being fair. Just being fair. We're in 2021. You can't act oblivious and act like you had no clue. Because now, look, it bit you in the behind. And people are upset, genuinely upset. You know, moving forward, this is what I suggest. You know, get creative people who got skin in the game, people who have been working hard and still can't seem to reach that level of success that you've gotten. And if the expertise is out of your vernacular, hire people. This is another thing I will point out.
Are accessible to folks. So, you know, it's never going to be enough for any of us until it's normal. Until you just see us in dark, light, all kinds of stuff. It's the same kinds of conversations we've had when we talk about black and light-skinned folks. You know, you've hired a light-skinned person. What about the dark person? So this is not a new controversy. But I'm going to ask you, Anna, is it one?
And I hope you get an idea that she says something along the lines that everybody is saying, but I think she also is under the impression that there wasn't enough talent. From what I gather, there was talent. There was Afro-Latino representation at these auditions. Now, were they taken into consideration is another thing. That's the meat and potatoes of this argument. With that, I leave you. And stay tuned for my next critique, which should be coming shortly. There's a number of other shows coming out on HBO and on Stars that I felt is inclusive and super fun that you should check out. I think one is called Run the World, sorry. And another one on HBO Max that I'm looking forward to also reviewing in treatment. So stay tuned. You know, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, XOXO, Nerdy Girl.